Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Knights of the Dirty Table. I am your host, Fitchburg's Merrick Henry, and today we are talking about Kevin Feige, producer of all things Marvel Studios, producing a new upcoming Star Wars film under the Disney umbrella. With me today are fellow Knights, Sir Jack Lowe.
Hello.
And Sir Wayne Dwyer.
Hello.
So I'm going to start with our mostly resident knight here in this case. Wayne, what are your thoughts on Kevin Feige taking all of his knowledge from the Marvel movies of essentially 20 years worth, starting from X-Men coming up to now, taking that information and bringing it over to Star Wars?
So he's going to fix Star Wars, hopefully.
Does it need fixing?
I mean, apparently a lot of people hated Solo. I saw it. I almost got up and left. Mainly because the SJW robot. I wanted to shoot that thing. I don't think I've ever cheered for something's death until I watched that robot.
You think that droid is annoying? Try playing the Vader Immortal experience in VR. It's on my stream at Rocinante152 if anyone wants to check it out.
There's a plug.
Yeah, shameless plug. Sorry.
No, please plug. That's what you're here for.
But there's this droid who's your sidekick, and she, like as often when you have a silent protagonist, you have a sidekick who actually does all the talking for you, and she is the worst. So if you thought that L337 was bad,
he knows the name of the damn
you gotta
robot.
check out Vader Immortal because it's pretty cringy. Like honestly,
I will.
So there's a couple reasons why I like Solo, and I don't know if we need to make the whole thing about that. I will say that I think that the only reason that was not well received financially at the box office was due to the fatigue of Star Wars as a franchise, as well as the mixed reception of Last Jedi.
Yeah, a big reason why Kevin Feige's coming in.
I don't know about you.
I really liked it.
I thought it was a great movie.
Other than the Canto Bite plot and how that that was pure B plot nonsense.
It was,
and
but
it
like every Star Wars has like a weird B plot in it.
It's okay. The rest,
but
of it was
has
really cool.
to mean something on the final plot. We have to get to the end of the movie in some way, and that just helped absolutely nothing.
I think that
it was
J.J.
the worst
Abrams
offender.
made a tough
movie to follow.
Exactly. Like, how do you explain why Luke wasn't there to help? Because that goes very much against.
Tell that to George Lucas.
But like, I liked everything that happened last year. Like, one of my favorite parts was when you found out that Rey is nothing more than just a normal person.
Well, as far as Kylo Ren knows.
Yeah, as far as Kylo, but like, even then though, like to me, that was a cool thing because that means that anyone could be a Jedi.
Yeah, anyone could be, as we saw from the Old Republic. Like, the Skywalker line is only just an exceptionally powerful line due to Anakin being supposedly created by the Force, and potentially through Sheev Palpatine.
If only those powers helped his acting skills.
Hey,
continue.
There's
Palpatine.
If you want to get into why the prequels are actually,
I'm stuck in the middle right now.
Green screens, George Lucas as a writer and director do not make for good mix. It's really tough to act with that kind of stuff. And
not a criticism of the actor.
Watch
just
Life
that
as
whole
a House.
Project.
Hayden Christensen gets a lot of hate for no reason.
I think Hayden Christensen did a good job in Episode 3.
Yes. I think he did too. Yeah, I think 2 is just a really bad movie.
2 is just a bad movie.
No one can act that well.
But Christopher Lee was in it, so it saved it a little bit for me.
He was probably Count Dooku was definitely one of the best
highlights.
The whole thing was a mess. But here's the thing: with the sequels, they have also felt like a bit of a mess. I say that with love because I think that because Disney chose to let one creator make one movie and then make another creator make another movie, there was no cohesion between the two. And what we're missing that was present a little bit more, I think this is also true of the original trilogy, is a lack of a full arc.
There's a reason why the MCU works from beginning to end.
Because they planned this.
There's a reason why Star Wars is bringing him over.
Yeah.
Not as like a full architect, but producing one movie to try to get a successful mindset going, instead of just someone coming in completely cold. I think it's the right thing to do, quite frankly. Get the guy who knows how to make a franchise.
The way that I feel about Star Wars is like The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda, you don't get a game every single year. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't get a brand new Zelda game every year. You have to wait for it.
It's not Call of Duty.
I feel like that should be the same way with Star Wars.
And they've clearly shown that is the way they want to go. They don't want to... Because the MCU can get away with it because comic book movies have the opportunity to have a subgenre that makes it more interesting.
Subgenre and just completely have totally separate characters. With Star Wars, as of the previous 8 films in the total anthology, excluding the Star Wars stories, it's following one narrative.
It's hard to make a different genre piece in what is already a very set story.
Yeah.
It can be done in other mediums, but I think as far as the movies are concerned, it's a really tough thing to do. And one problem that I think that the the sequels have had as well
for Star Wars.
Yeah, for Star Wars. oh gosh, no, I forget. But I really am excited for this. Now, here's the thing. In the last one, we were talking about Spidey and all that, and part of the reason that all happened was because Feige couldn't help produce that third Spider-Man film.
I mean, realistically, I think he could have. I think that was kind of just a
This
thing they were
sounds
saying.
like the reason why he couldn't. It wasn't all these other MCU movies that were going to come out anyway. It was because he was being asked to help out with
I don't think that would have been a roadblock for him. He's
think
not.
so?
I think he doesn't.
He's already stretched pretty thin.
He's
He's
stretched
stretched
pretty
very
thin, but there's a reason why there are directors and there are separate teams for all of these films. He can come on to sets wherever the filming is taking place, but he can still operate from above and oversee. That's his job. That's why he's so good at it, because he can oversee and just plug in the final extra pieces that are needed to help make this film the best it can be without stepping on the director's toes.
And as a producer, you don't have to be on set every day. Like, in fact, none of them really are. Because your whole goal is to make sure that all the pieces are moving in the order that they need to, because you're the one overseeing everything.
I think Kevin's an exception here. I think he does go on set as often as he's able to work into his schedule. Obviously, it's tough, but I think he's someone who's willing to step in.
I keep looking at this picture because I have literally the exact same picture from Comic-Con because I borrowed someone's cap shield when I was doing my Anakin cosplay, and I was like, this feels great.
What's funny about this is someone just threw in a random arm on the end. Like, if,
that's like, oh my god, that is not his hand.
No, it's not. It's a horrible composite. This was Google at 5 a.m. to prepare for this show.
Good job. Franken Feige.
I try to be a good producer.
You know what? I have that exact same shot. No one asked you.
Is Siri talking to you?
I think Siri's trying to join in on the
Siri,
podcast.
mind your business.
Yeah, we're talking about Feige, not Siri.
Well, she won't let that happen.
Siri is jealous of Kevin Feige.
So if there's one thing that we can say is pretty obvious, is that Kevin Feige's fingerprints on any piece of work means good things for that piece of work.
So
he
far,
was involved in the original X-Men films, and he did have a hand in the Spider-Man films.
He cares very deeply for these franchises, for these stories. I don't know how big of a Star Wars fan he is, but
he's a huge Star Wars fan.
Then we're good.
Proof. Marvel Phase 2, all of Phase 2, there is one reference in all the Phase 2 films of someone losing an arm.
You're right. Oh my god, I forgot. He is actually
the
a huge
most
fan.
prominent one is Winter Soldier. Spoiler alert, Winter Soldier doesn't have an arm. There's an instance of Thor losing his hand, and there's certainly Iron Man 3, Aldrich Killian loses his hand at one point. So it's there. You just got to look for it. I know it's in other places too, in other films.
loses his hand in Ultron.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's what it is. Yeah. So he's a huge Star Wars fan.
Then we're good.
All of Phase 2 for Marvel was meant to be a way of almost similar to Empire Strikes Back as one movie spread across like 6 movies in terms of
all this
continuing
loss, and then
building up and
fighting through
escalating.
it.
Yeah. So there's similarities there.
Yeah.
So yes, he is a huge Star Wars guy.
Yeah. So that being the case, I totally forgot about all that. That's so great. And
Yeah, your brother told me about that.
we're all set because all that we need from him is to just be personally invested in whatever he's working on. Thinking of Star
I think
Wars
he's been
trilogies,
dying to have
or
something like this on his
Star
resume
Wars
for a while.
movies, or now just working on the Star Wars treatments. I am, of course, talking about D.B. Weiss and De Benioff.
Yep.
Who, after the work that they did on Game of Thrones, people aren't really excited to hear that they're doing a Star Wars film.
Tell that to the Emmys.
Now that they're pulling it back, they didn't win Best Writing.
No, but they won Best Show regardless, so it didn't matter how they could have written something awful and they still would have won.
But so
it
here's
wouldn't
the
have
thing.
mattered.
Imagine if Feige's the one overseeing them and being like, guys, no, that's dumb. Just finish your work.
There's a reason why
I
these
feel like
Spider-Man films have been regarded highly compared to other Spider-Man films, when one producer had their hand with the writing team and another with a separate writing team.
The producer's job is to see
as
the
going
whole
back to
story.
the Game of Thrones guys, they did a really good job, from what I heard, because I've never read the books or watched the show. But the first 4 or 5 seasons, apparently it's spot on from the book.
Yeah, the adaptation, they're great adapters. They know how to take an entire structure. So there's 2 kinds of writers, the way George R.R. Martin puts it. There are gardeners and there are architects. And George R.R. Martin is a gardener. That's why we haven't gotten the 5th book or 6th book, because he doesn't know how to trim these weeds properly to get things to wrap up. Whereas with D&D, they know how to take this whole plot and know the pieces that are important to the overall story.
To put it into a story.
They don't know how to write an original story, though. And that's okay. They know how things are supposed to fit in order for the building not to topple down. But if they weren't
But, like,
told how
I
the top was
feel-
supposed to look, I don't know if they're going to get it.
So, are they going to be writing the Feige movie?
So now it's kind of up in the air. Like I was joking about earlier, they went from having an entire trilogy at their hands to now it's like, I don't know, they might be doing a treatment.
I mean, like, if they get stuck with the treatment, then couldn't they just adapt one of the expanding universe stories?
I don't know. There was a rumor about a Knights of the Old Republic movie, and it is not official in any way, shape, or form. But boy, I want it to be. And if they were the ones doing it, like especially like this is really deep cut into the Old Republic. Not really, but imagine an Exar Kun, Ulic Qel-Droma story, because that's like old school Obi-Wan and Anakin, and kind of like dynamic. Exar Kun becomes one of the darkest Sith lords ever.
Yeah, you're going deep cut on this one.
Yeah. And look
You
at
guys might need to get a Band-Aid.
And if I could get that on screen in the same way that I'm so excited to see like Mighty Thor in the MCU.
Mm-hmm. I feel like with the example that Kevin Feige has displayed of the
Looking at
last
him like he's
10,
Jesus
11 years,
behind us.
he is. I have a whole video talking about
He is
this.
Marvel
Praise
Jesus.
to the Feige.
So, in Feige we trust, that's for sure. So, he's demonstrated for the last 10, 11 years how to make cohesive stories all fit while still creating their own separate fan bases. You know, Captain Marvel being a C-list hero, now being an A-lister. Black Panther B-list, going to A-list. Guardians going to bottom of the C-list, becoming A-list. You know, taking all these properties.
Iron Man up to there, you know.
Oh yeah, no, he was not an
he
A-list.
brought
Hard
Iron
C.
Man.
I remember going, who cares about Iron Man?
I
I
would
do
go
too.
B
I didn't
because
go
he
in,
had a
and then
series.
literally saying to my friend who we went to go see the movie with, going, "Hey, you want to go see Iron Man?" You're like leaving in like a week. He's like, "Yeah, sure." Going out of the movie. That was a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Did you have fun? I liked it. I didn't think I was going to, because that was back 2007. Keep in mind, people, 2007 was kind of like the dark ages of comic books. We didn't quite know what
I think
we were going
Last
to get.
Stand had come out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Well, we had Batman Begins. Dark Knight came out a couple months after that.
But looking
so
back at
You're right.
Batman Begins, though, like it's a good movie. It's like, but
It's not the
how
Dark
many
Knight.
It
times-
still suffers from like early
How
comic
many
book
times
movie
could
syndrome.
you really like watch Batman Begins?
I've watched Dark Knight way more than the other two.
yeah,
I watched Dark.
That's
Like,
'cause of
even
Heath
then,
Ledger,
though,
though.
like Dark Knight has kind of become ruined for me because everyone just keeps on yelling how great it is of a movie, and I was like, no one's ever seen Mask of Phantasm. Come back to me when you see Mask of Phantasm.
So anyway, my point being, we have an example of great writing over a long period of time
Yeah.
and being able to plant seeds and make these pieces, you know, get bigger and bigger over time. And Star Wars, especially, and I know we really only have 2 films to go off of in terms of the new the Disney iteration and
We have
stuff.
four.
Four.
I'm
We
not
have
counting
4.
Rogue One and
Rogue One and Solo are perfectly reasonable ways to look at how
Yeah.
they're going to approach the stories, though.
Yes,
Rogue-
but they're
Rogue
meant
One
to be
has problems.
outside. They're meant to be like
And everything-
outside of the overall narrative building up to something.
But everything after this movie is too, though. You have to
Yes.
realize that that's the big thing, is that we have no idea what these movies are going to be about.
We don't even know what
There's
the
gonna
last
be no
Skywalker.
And that's
Skywalker.
fine. I just want
Was
a
it the last
better.
Skywalker?
I just want a better payoff of why I'm sitting here watching these movies. Why am I sitting here watching episode 7 even though it's a rehash of episode 4? Why am I sitting here watching, you know, episode 8 when there's just I can't even describe
See, I remember going to see episode 8 and thinking, like, sitting down in theaters watching it, I'm like, all right, I like it. And I don't think I would really want to go back and actively rewatch it over and over again like I did with episode 5 or...
Yeah.
Well, I think what part of makes the new movies tough to get into as much as that, I think that they're a little too invincible. I mean, Poe is a world-class starfighter pilot, and I don't have to worry a second about him being in the
That's the
pilot
thing
seat.
with Poe.
But,
Poe was hardly even a character worthwhile in
Right.
episode 7.
As much as I love Rey, and I'm not going to call her a Mary Sue, I don't think she is.
I don't think she is either.
She is still just as much as Finn is, even though Finn is supposed to be the most inept out of all of them. They all are incredibly good at what they can do, and all seemingly invincible. The original trilogy cast is not, but
Yeah.
it seems to me that the new cast is. And what makes the older movies so compelling is how vulnerable they all
Absolutely.
are. Obi-Wan
You-
is this old dude who can just barely keep up in a New
And
Hope.
you got plenty of character development just in that first movie alone to kind of understand the universe. We get
Luke got
Poe in
the crap
episode
beat out of
7,
him.
and he just jumps to a leading dominant male in 8 with, like, really no
I thought that
background.
that I think
unless
is-
you read a book, but general fans aren't going to do that.
I think them pushing him back and making him realize how much of a narcissist he was.
I think that was a good move.
I think so too. I think it was done in a way that kind of made it very grating to watch, but I think it is going to inevitably make him a better leader come this new
It's not that his
Yeah.
character development was bad in episode 8. It's the fact that you kind of just pulled this character out of nothing just because he was Oscar Isaac and he's already building up a profile. If you had
I
this
love the
character
character.
in
I
your
like
mind
Poe a
from the
lot, too.
get-go,
Yeah.
use him from the get-go.
They did. He's one of the first characters you see in the original.
And he's barely there.
I just remember when everyone was mad about Kylo Ren having a lightsaber that looked really cool, and I was like, "That's not how lightsabers work." It's like, shut up, it's a movie.
People said that about the Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber.
I did not know that. I also think that thing's cool.
I remember being like, "What? That's that?" But it has to go
Sith
out one
Lords
end.
get the best lightsabers.
Because when there was a How It's Made book. There was a How It's Made book about Star Wars, which is like the most useless book you could ever have.
Yep.
Yeah, but people, because it's old, they're going to hold true to it.
I was 8, and I'm like, okay, so is this real? Is this a real thing? And I'm like looking at the internal circuitry, and I'm like, what the heck? But they made a big deal of being like, oh, like you have to have a back crystal that focuses into the one that actually creates the blade. And I was like, okay, then how's this work in this Darth Maul lightsaber? Huh, smart guys? But everyone loves it, and that's one of my favorite scenes of the whole prequel trilogy is that last scene at the end of episode 1 between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul.
I will say this, though, Duel of Fates. I don't like episode 2, episode 1.
Duel of Fates is so good. Yeah.
But I will always say this about Star Wars, is that the music can almost save the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, episode 2, it's a bad movie. We all know it is. But the music is so good.
It's the only series that I can listen to a tune
I've listened
know what movie and what part it comes from, not only from having watched them so many times, but just from how iconic they are.
See, like for me, the big thing for me is episode 9 is John Williams' last movie.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. This is going to be a huge passing of the torch, and if anyone's going to be able to like give it a good cohesive vision, because the only reason I think the Rise of the Skywalker is actually going to be the best of this trilogy is that J.J. Abrams gets to come back and actually finish what he started.
But Abrams hasn't really finished too many of his own stuff.
I know, but that's going to be the interesting thing is like he must have had an idea of what he wanted these mystery boxes to be. I just
want a payoff. I want there to be a reason for why I've seen episode 7 and episode 8 so that I can enjoy a complete trilogy arc in episode 9, and I think that's what I'm going to get from Kevin Feige in whatever role, even though it's just one movie to start. But let me keep that in mind. Kevin Feige is just doing one Star Wars movie to start. We will see where this goes, but I think they've called in the right person.
I think they could have
to shift the narrative.
Kathleen Kennedy, I don't think was the right person to lead this.
I don't know anything about. I barely know who.
She's enthusiastic. She's enthusiastic, but unfortunately, I don't think she quite knew what the fans were looking for out of these trilogies.
I also feel like people when they announce new Star Wars movies, people were always like, "We're gonna get stuff from the extended universe, and the extended universe is great."
Nope.
And they're like, "We're just gonna chop." We're just going to chop most of that stuff off, and then
which is honestly, after thinking about it for a long time,
I think
too much was written. Too much was written.
Oh no, definitely. I think it was the right thing to do. My issue with when they separated the expanded universe and started everything from scratch is now there's new books and everything that's part of the new lore. I thought originally that it was just going to be the movies and the TV shows that were this continuity, and everything else was going to be separate. And now you're just getting everything.
Well, no, an expanded universe is good. An expanded universe is what kept Star Wars in people's minds and eyes for years after the movies came
trilogies,
out. And so, like, you have to have that in this story because, like, so many times these movies aren't perfect and they are riddled with plot holes. And these books not only fill in a lot of these gaps in really meaningful ways, but they also give you more in a way that's more accessible. And with this universe in particular, it has so much to it. And so many different ways you can approach it from different mediums.
But that's what's so good about what Marvel Studios has done. There are very few plot holes. And if there were any plot holes that were made in previous movies, they have gone to address and retcon them in previous things. But the plot holes are very few. You don't need the books to fill in the gaps.
I feel like people with plot holes, I think now they just actually try to hunt them down to find them. Mm-hmm. Before, though, like, I really didn't know what a plot hole was until like 10 years ago until someone pointed out, oh, this is a giant plot hole. I was like,
hold up, a giant hole in that movie.
I didn't care. I want to watch a movie to be entertained. One of my favorite movies ever is The Princess Bride. They actively point out the plot holes in that movie.
It's a brilliant film. And
it's a great
gets remade,
movie.
I swear to God.
I swear to God, too. Me and you are on the same page on that one. But, like, Princess Bride is the perfect film for me. It's also the best movie ever to watch when you're sick.
Oh, it's a great... Yeah, because you're literally just... what's his name?
Yeah. Fred Savage.
Fred Savage. Yeah, you're literally just Fred Savage at that point.
Yeah, Peter Falk's reading to you. But that movie is like my go-to movie for when people say about plot holes. Like, do you care about the Princess Bride? And like, yeah. I was like, well, that movie.
Why does that space worm? Where does that space worm get its food? How does it survive in space? You know, how is a Mylock colony living inside its stomach? You could go on and on with even one small plot of these movies.
I don't
but
think
they
those
still
are
work
plot holes, though. I think
they're inaccuracies and consistencies, what have you.
I just
the
want
bigger
to point
plot
out.
hole is something like how Luke could have was Luke on Dagobah for 5 months, and were they being tortured on Bespin for 5 months, or was it
he
only
there
a
for
short
5 days?
weekend and then he was still able to? Take
that's
on
a fair
Dagobah?
plot hole.
That's a plot hole.
Yes.
But it's okay. I don't care because the sequence of events keep me engaged until
As
the
long
end.
as the story's good, you
The
really don't
story
notice.
should be more important than the plot hole for anything, though.
Oh, of course. So, like, as far as it goes, yeah, I mean, I think there's really no downside to be had from...
Thank you.
There's really no downside to be had from having a man like him involved in this. He's clearly not, like, they're not... it doesn't seem like they're relying on him completely for
No,
this.
and I don't think he's going to replace
But if
really
anyone
anybody.
should have
We're just
insight-
getting an
If
extra
anyone
hand
should have
here.
insight, I feel like he should do it, especially if he's as big a fan as you said that he is.
He is.
Because then
He
he's
is,
going to
yeah.
treat it the way that he would want to watch it.
He is a fan tackling the franchise the same way he was a fan of Marvel superheroes, really superheroes in general, because I'm sure he was a DC fan at some point, too.
Everyone's a DC fan at one point.
Yeah.
So you have a fan coming in to display, here's what I want as a fan. I'm not talking, looking from the business side. I'm not looking, from what the executives want. I'm looking at, as a fan, this is what I want out of this story. And I think you got the best person
Yeah.
in the room,
100%.
I mean,
And I do not think it's going to interfere with any of the Marvel
are we
films. It
getting-
better not. We're getting 4 films in 2021.
And
so
several TV shows. Yeah, I think we're
like,
good.
yeah,
a bunch of TV shows and a whole bunch of other stuff.
he's got plenty of teams at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah,
So-
and it's like he's not the only person that makes this happen. Those
there's-
scripts don't write themselves.
Nope.
Christopher McFeely and I forget the
Steven.
Am I
All that I
Mixing
know
up
is
there.
that both of the guys that wrote Infinity War and Endgame also used to write for Community, the TV show.
Yeah. Well, that's why they always shoehorn in the community actors. I mean, who are we missing? Just Chevy Chase and
Joe McHale. Joe McHale, Chevy Chase,
Oh,
and
Chevy Chase is missing out. He needs.
No,
he
no,
could use
no,
the
he's
Who
not-
could we get him to play in the MCU?
Chevy Chase
It's for another
ruined
episode.
Community for people. That's why season 4 was so bad.
To heck with Keanu. I don't care about Keanu in the MCU. Give me Chevy Chase.
Just have him fall downstairs. That's all I want. I mean, he is literally the best guy for pratfalls.
So what hero do you think Chevy Chase would be? Feel free to comment down below. And on top of that, we're going to end our topic
I feel like
here.
he's going to be like old, like sandwich or kite man or something like that.
If it was DC, I feel like I'd put him as Dead Man. But
No,
that
I
could
would
just
put him
be
as
me.
Condiment King.
Perfect.
Make him the Jackal.
Yeah.
And officially
But
on
just,
that
just
note,
stay away from the Clone Saga. Stay away from the
we
Clone
are going
Saga.
to end it here, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Knights of the Dirty Table. If you liked what you saw, share the video, like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, get people into our way of thinking, blah, 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 comment your thoughts and all that stuff. We will see you next time.
Just no Clone Saga.
Ben Reilly, you're my hero.